Hello, America. My name is Anthony Wall. I'm a YouTuber who was next to the World Trade Center towers in the morning of the attack and the night before on the World Trade Center towers. I was an observer in the Ninth Circuit Court next to the World Trade Center towers the morning of the attack. Merry Christmas. Please get me off the fake conversations with WFSB about that. The differences of the guilt of the names at their location or the names next to them or the names tied to them. That was his, and like conjunctive to that and to that, like Route 3 and the state judicial branch offices. It increasingly has and has had collusion with the World Trade Center attack in various natures. No, I don't speak to others. Everyone's forcing everyone to speak to others so they can fake what is spoken for them. They even had that the court had its identity used remotely from inside itself. The morning of the World Trade Center attack, it was proven afterwards, presented to the panel of judges next to the World Trade Center, the morning of the attack, were legal papers where were insidiously from inside the court, legal papers that had been already brought to the court on time and time stamped. They changed the date on the time of the timestamp and presented to the court that way. That was proven, and that led up to a 2006 district court case that's recorded, also involved with both sides of the case in the court, involved increasingly with names next to news locations. Fox Connecticut News has a bunch of people next to them involved with Wethersfield Police that faked conversations and faked me being within conversations, being at the Wethersfield Police Station and having a conversation with them as a kid and now as an adult too. And when they arrested me from my school one time, I didn't have one word of the conversation. They gave me a thumbprint. I didn't have one word of the conversation. The kids who did go down and speak with the Wethersfield Police Department, they put them in, they gave a deposition about that. They also put sequence ships to fake ties to me. And it's increasingly people tied to untimely deaths years apart, and child abusers, leaders of kids, and people with identity theft, fraud, slanders with private school kids, colluding with people that went to the same school that never even saw each other around the school. So they don't even know each other and they're pretending other. These are also people that have act and make other take the picture all along Route 3 and Route 175 from the founding locations. The news has collusions with identity theft, fraud, slanders with their sources at the same time with the interbranch of foreign and news. And names next to body dumping spots, years apart, brought up at the same time. U/Esbit and the names next to them. They increasingly have collusions because they had this breaching method used and uses the names of the people, the sciences, that country's A through Z, remotely. It raises them blaming other things, others, ourselves, for things that it caused. And then religious founders were born. Then Jesus Christ was born. And already this breaching method had been using confessions. And no one realized it, how it could be using, what it was using confessions about is because it measures and maintains other things, other/s or selves are blamed for what it caused originally and what it keeps. What it caused originally is from off campuses of the republic for which we stand to become syntax and nature abridged. Worse than just criminal insidiousness nature. It needs things like criminal insidiousness nature to be blamed alone. Everyone not fathoming how there could be something like criminal insidiousness nature too. Ugh. So this thing wrought modern countries that could only be operated by locations, areas, and states, having been tactically abused by a hyper-foreign breaching method to keep things like transnational organized crime groups, criminal enterprises, blamed and countered wrongly, even when correctly, as collusion/s, but also with the differences of guilt because all sides. When did the breaching? James Madison demonstrated to us. He was conscious that the breaching method, how was the breaching method propagated, only allowed collusion /S with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, terrorists, witch trials, courts next to Webb House, where George Washington had to come with James Madison's plan and the plural founders behind him and that plan. But we have that plan replaced. Why and how they had to use it. Why and how everyone had to speak syntax, leaving out. They're actually wanted and needed by nature and by themselves, syntax. Because everyone's syntax was measured and maintained by a breaching method, an extent of collusion /S against themselves and against everyone else, or that body was sensed. Part of the slavery method only allows subject treatments like slavery. If to leave out the laws against all women, leave out the laws against Native Americans, leave the laws against colonists, the differences, all human differences were played in all roles, so everyone could keep truths about who to blame and why used for lies. And this is one of the things that the leaders could discern distinctly from ourselves. They're trying to say this too. President Trump, his dream is to have communicated for himself. Well, no one will allow him to have communicated. People are using truths for lies and pretending other. They're using truths to screen lies. How many times does the FBI have to repeat that they have to lie to us? In other words, they don't know how to tell the truth. And the differences of guilt too, interagencies, and the value of their the value of the worth of their whole careers. It is recorded how they were used remotely, criminally poor and influenced. Then they want to jump in with it, change what people said about predicate acts, fake what they think about World Trade Center predicate acts. Channel 3 News attached me to fake conversations with themselves and with others about the World Trade Center and fake ties to doctors as a kid and as an adult. And they have that as increasing collusion /S with all kinds of people and increasing amounts of people because they won't follow mandated law. I don't have a phone. You have to get them on paper, one name and sequence with the interbranch too, collusions with them and layers of other overt criminal enterprises with those same ones. I mentioned their names. This is not made up. They're in the background making things up with the news at the same time. People I had nothing to do with. They have sequence shifts tied to a John Mayano and people involved with Washington, D.C., involved with medical corruption. And all along Route 175 and Route 3 with mayors, retired mayors, involved with people with putting fake things in databases and acting tied to it. And people tied to them. He sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm this. In other words, too. That's with two speech class teachers I had in high school are involved with Washington, D.C. And I never had a personal conversation with either one of them. But those are ones, too. That's part of the, what I recorded that was hid. Because off campuses, people tied to former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. He's involved with things I recorded that they shouldn't have hid from my parents. They have all kinds of wire crime acts and methods. And they hide this from all parents. Then they need to pretend that their motivations are other. When they're saying that they're lying about things for sexual things for one kid, they're lying about to everyone. Listen out, they can't even, they have self-value collusion /S replacing what our founders communicated about the original plan. Why, how they had to counter-extort everyone. Because everyone was fact-cheating nature, tortured, extorted, and enslaved and measured by a method that wasn't just the internationally monitored conversations, wasn't just the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, international companies, real sick. They had even only slavery laws permitted roles. And then America's founders were born. They didn't have free speech. These things aren't debatable. See, they have a behavior racketeering worse than war crimes, collusion/S, right through world wars, right through the Civil War. Please, CBS, follow mandated law. And Fox News, too. Whiting Forensics has collusions with your Facebook pages, with the campus's Facebook pages, too, with judges and prosecutors involved with overt criminal enterprise, private ones, proven first forced child abusers leader to kids. They had collusions with it, including women judges involved with all kinds of things, with the former director of the FBI, Robert Lewis. These people are shown they have to do and say whatever so they can bring things before courts that were already used remotely since pounding drums. The same reason why, even if they were completely made up, why there's a witch trials place next to Webb House, now renamed the Webb Stevens Museum in Old Wethersfield, Connecticut. Then and now that place, those places, and across the country, founding locations, places they have replaced. This breaching method measures and maintains self-value collusion/S, replacing what our founders communicated, using the words of what people said at the time, leaving out the breaching methods roles with that, and what our founders communicated about it, using knowledge of good and evil to pretend integrity with the principles of American history syntax. As styles of logic, natures of logic, also tactically delusions wrought, which is also part of why and how we have black people's rights of eyes. And a breaching method reassigned with that communicates about. And nature shows us that, and our founders communicated about that. James Madison wanted nothing to do with slavery. You guys have, and our plural unknown founders wanted nothing to do with it. But you have our plural unknown founders and their plan and roles with what forced everyone at the same time to have a unity and to help. You have it replaced with the people who left slavery too. They replaced what they left replaced. They left self-value forced, having been forced. Its roles with the subject treatments left out. James Madison explained how they handled something because they counted it, and they knew that the people sooner or later are going to counter all these things, these things individually grouped and how it's hurting them. But by the time they would, they'd be sensed, and it was adapted to through time. James Madison needs us clearer than day with the other founders. If we had honest about this too, nature itself shows us that Native Americans, every one of them at the time was our founder. Even if they didn't know and they weren't in on the plan of James Madison, which proper, honest, and sane science shows that there were proofs that they had to be. Maybe they weren't. We were told the only founder, plural, we know the name of is James Madison, but there had to be more. You should. Vaccines, just things. Merry Christmas.